What if I told you that a single penny, something so ordinary that millions of people have ignored it, tossed it into jars, lost it in couch cushions, or handed it over without a second thought at the grocery store, could actually be worth not just hundreds or thousands, but an astonishing $83 million, and that coin is none other than the 1951 wheat penny. A coin that on the surface looks like any other small brown cent but hides within it one of the most fascinating stories in American history, a story of minting errors, production anomalies, collector obsession, and the magic that turns simple copper into a treasure chest. And the reason this coin stands out is not just because it was struck at the San Francisco Mint during a time when the mint was manually applying mintmarks and producing coins under pressure with less precise technology than today, but because the imperfections of the minting process in that era created a playground of potential errors that, in rare cases, transformed an otherwise common coin into something extraordinary. And when we look at the story of the 1951 wheat penny, we begin with the broader context of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, which started in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth, and by the mid-20th century had already become iconic. With the reverse design featuring two stalks of wheat symbolizing prosperity and abundance, and the obverse showcasing the bust of Lincoln as designed by Victor David Brenner. And the coins struck in San Francisco in 1951 carried that simple S mint mark beneath the date, marking their origin from the West Coast Mint. And while hundreds of millions of these pennies were struck, the fascinating thing is that no two production runs were exactly the same, because each die had its own lifespan, each punch of the mint mark was done by hand, and each strike could go slightly wrong, and those little wrongs are what have made some of these coins so valuable today. And when we explore the idea of a 1951 wheat penny being worth $83 million, it's not because every example is worth that much, but because within the world of coin collecting there exist rare outliers, rare anomalies that take on legendary status, sometimes from double die errors where the coin shows shadowed features on Lincoln's profile or the lettering of "In God We Trust", sometimes from off-center strikes where part of the design is missing but the date and mintmark remain visible, sometimes from repunched mintmarks where the S was struck more than once and leaves behind a dramatic overlapping letter, and sometimes even from transitional errors where a coin may have been struck on the wrong planchet altogether, like a dime blank, or using a leftover alloy from another year. And it is these incredibly rare possibilities that fuel the legend of the 1951 penny as a coin worth more than mansions, more than sports cars, more than some entire companies. Because collectors know that when something is one of a kind, there is no ceiling to its value, and when we examine why $83 million became associated with this penny, it connects to the speculative nature of the coin market, where auctions for ultra-rare examples of coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1943 copper penny have fetched millions, and where private sales and bidding wars among the world's wealthiest collectors can drive the price of a tiny coin into the stratosphere. And so the story of the 1951 being valued at $83 million may be rooted in the idea that one perfect storm of rarity, error, condition, and timing could make such a valuation not just a dream but a reality. And think about the sheer irony of it, how something that was once worth a single cent could, over time, become worth more than gold, more than diamonds, more than some of the most expensive paintings ever sold, simply because of its rarity and the desire of collectors to own a piece of history. And when we imagine the journey of these coins, it becomes even more fascinating, because in 1951 these pennies were minted and entered circulation like all others, passing through the hands of children buying candy, soldiers returning from war, families saving change in jars, businesses making change at counters. And nobody at that time knew which one of those pennies carried the tiny flaw or anomaly that would make it priceless decades later. And so it is entirely possible that someone once bought a loaf of bread with a penny that today could be worth tens of millions, or that somewhere in an attic an old cigar box full of coins still contains one of these gems, waiting to be discovered by a curious collector or grandchild who takes the time to look closer. And that's part of what makes coin collecting such an exciting pursuit. The chance that history and fortune could literally be hiding in plain sight, mixed in with ordinary pocket change. And the 1951 wheat penny stands as a perfect example of how this magic happens. Because while most examples are worth little more than a few cents, the rare varieties make the hunt worthwhile, and numismatists will spend hours studying mintmarks under magnification, comparing the thickness of lettering, examining the color of the copper, distinguishing between red, red-brown, and brown designations that affect value, and carefully grading the condition to see if the coin is circulated or preserved in mint state, and each of these tiny details can mean the difference between a penny worth 50 cents and a penny worth 50 million, and that is why the lore of the 1951s has grown to the point where some people claim it is among the most valuable coins in existence, with one speculative valuation placing its worth at $83 million, a number so staggering that it captures the imagination of everyone who hears it, even those who have never collected a coin before. Because the story of a penny becoming a fortune speaks to something universal, the human love of treasure, of hidden value, of the possibility that something small and overlooked could change one's life forever. And when you think of it this way, the 1951's wheat penny is more than just a coin, it is a symbol of opportunity, of history, and of the endless curiosity that drives people to search, to collect, and to dream. And every time one of these coins shows up in the news, whether at auction or in the hands of a collector, it renews the excitement, sparking more people to dig through their change, to check their jars, to pull out old collections from their grandparents, all with the hope of finding that one special coin. And while the truth is that most 1951's wheat pennies won't make anyone rich, the legend of the few that might be worth millions keeps the story alive, and that story has now become a permanent part of numismatic folklore. A reminder that history is not only found in museums, but in the very coins that pass through our hands. And if you've stayed with me through this deep dive into the story of the 1951's wheat penny, then you now know just how extraordinary an ordinary penny can be, and perhaps you too will look at coins differently from now on, knowing that even the smallest change in your pocket could hold the key to a fortune. So if you've enjoyed this journey into the unbelievable value of a coin once dismissed as common but now connected to an $83 million legend, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of hidden treasures, rare coins, and the fascinating secrets of history that just might be waiting for you to discover. Next, 1945 wheat penny. Have you ever imagined that something as small and ordinary as a 1-cent coin sitting in your pocket change could actually hold a value so immense that it rivals luxury homes, supercars, rare paintings, and even the treasures locked inside the most secure vaults of history? Because today we are going to uncover the fascinating, unbelievable, and mind-blowing journey of the 1945 wheat penny, a coin that at first glance seems like nothing more than a simple copper cent yet has stunned collectors and historians with a rumored face value that has soared to an astonishing $24 million, a number so outrageous and captivating that it has made this penny one of the most talked about and legendary pieces of American numismatic history. And in this story we will dive deeper and deeper into how a humble wartime cent from the mid-1940s became the centerpiece of myths, discoveries, errors, and auction legends, because the 1945 penny was born in an era when the world was still grappling with the final years of World War II, when resources were limited, metals were scarce, and the United States Mint was forced to adapt to shifting circumstances to ensure the nation's money supply continued to flow smoothly. And in such a chaotic period, mistakes, anomalies, and rare variations emerged during the minting process. Each one a small accident of history that transformed into unimaginable fortune for those lucky enough to discover and preserve them. And when we talk about the 1945 wheat penny, we are not just discussing any coin, but one that carries with it a legacy of wartime sacrifice, a symbol of resilience, and above all a coin that has sparked countless rumors about hidden errors like double die strikes where the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date itself appear doubled with a ghost-like shadow that sets it apart, off-center strikes that leave parts of the coin's design cut away, creating asymmetry that fascinates collectors, clipped planchets where the coin blank was cut irregularly before being struck and leaves a crescent-shaped bite on the edge, and even the legendary tales of 1945 cents struck on leftover steel planchets from the emergency 1943 steel penny production, which would create a hybrid piece so rare and so historically significant that owning one would be like possessing a golden ticket in the world of numismatics. And each of these possibilities adds fuel to the fire of why a 1945 wheat penny could be valued so astronomically high, because era coins, particularly from this era, have always been the dream of serious collectors, turning the smallest cents into priceless artifacts. But beyond the technical errors, there is also the sheer human fascination with the story behind the coin, because think about it, millions of 1945 wheat pennies were produced. Billions of Lincoln cents have circulated across the United States over decades, yet somewhere hidden among them lies the chance that a single coin might be carrying the weight of millions of dollars in value, a tiny copper disc holding history, mystery, and treasure all in one. And this is why collectors and treasure hunters scour through coin rolls, estate sales, garage sales, flea markets, old piggy banks, and dusty jars of pennies handed down through generations in the hope of striking fortune in the form of a coin that could change their lives forever. And if you consider the long and colorful history of coin collecting, some of the most legendary finds have always revolved around pennies that seemed ordinary until the careful eyes of dedicated numismatists spotted something extraordinary, like the 1943 copper penny that broke records and sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or the 1955 double-die cent that shook the coin world and became one of the most iconic collectibles in American history. And the 1945 penny stands tall among these legends because it combines the allure of wartime production mysteries, the powerful emotional weight of being struck during one of the most pivotal years in modern history, and the sheer thrill of astronomical rumored values. And while skeptics often argue that no single penny could truly be worth $24 million, history has already proven that the coin market is not simply about face value or metal content but about rarity, storytelling, and demand. Because the value of a coin is not just measured in copper and zinc but in its story, its myth, and its place in the imaginations of those who chase it, and the 1945 wheat penny carries a story as rich and compelling as any treasure chest pulled from the bottom of the sea, from its striking process at the mint where massive machines stamped out cent after cent bearing the timeless portrait of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the classic wheat ears on the other, symbolizing growth, prosperity, and the agricultural backbone of the nation, to the hands it passed through during an era when soldiers were returning home from battle, when families were rebuilding their lives after years of uncertainty, and when America was stepping into a new chapter of progress and prosperity. And this means that every 1945 penny not only circulated as money but also as a silent witness to history, a witness to the end of war and the beginning of peace. And perhaps that is why collectors today are so obsessed with finding the rarest variations, because owning one feels like holding an actual piece of that pivotal chapter of American life. And when such a penny is rumored to carry a value in the tens of millions, it no longer feels like just a collectible hobby, it feels like the ultimate treasure hunt, a real-life opportunity to stumble across a fortune hidden in plain sight. And the mythology surrounding coins only makes them more valuable, because the more people talk about the 1945 penny being worth $24 million, the more it cements itself as a legend in numismatic culture, creating demand, fueling curiosity, and keeping the legend alive in both the minds of serious collectors and everyday dreamers alike. And for those who doubt whether such values are truly possible, history has already given us multiple examples through record-breaking auctions where coins once dismissed as pocket change sold for astronomical sums that no one had predicted, showing us clearly that the coin market is driven not only by rarity but by passion, storytelling, and the thrill of ownership, because owning something that almost no one else in the world possesses creates a sense of prestige and power unlike anything else. And so when you hear about a 1945 wheat penny being tied to such a massive value, you begin to understand that what makes it extraordinary is not only the errors and mistakes that may exist on its surface but also the aura of mystery and speculation that surrounds it. Because in the world of numismatics every detail matters, from mint marks like D for Denver or S for San Francisco, which might carry subtle design differences, to the wear patterns that reveal the journey of that coin through decades of circulation, and even the patina and toning that may have developed on its copper surface over time, which can make it unique compared to every other surviving piece. And for those lucky enough to stumble upon such a penny, the possibilities stretch far beyond its copper shine, because this is not just about money. It is about holding a physical symbol of history, resilience, survival, and the power of human curiosity. And in the grand scheme of collecting, coins like the 1945 wheat penny are the reason why treasure hunts never truly die, because they remind us that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. And it is this eternal possibility that keeps coin collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people constantly searching through their change with excitement and hope, because the dream of turning 1 cent into $24 million is not just about wealth but about the magical feeling that history itself can still surprise us. So the next time you see a penny, especially an old wheat cent with the date 1945, take a closer look, study its details, check for doubling, examine the mint mark, feel its weight, and look for anything unusual. Because you never know if it might just be one of those legendary pieces carrying the staggering story of $24 million tied into its copper core. And with that incredible thought, I invite you to keep your eyes open, stay curious, and remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories of hidden treasures, rare coins, and amazing discoveries, and join us on this ongoing journey where history, mystery, and money collide in the most fascinating ways imaginable. Next, 1944 wheat penny. Now we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a journey into history, mistakes, mysteries, and the extraordinary value that has been attached to a small piece of metal that most people would normally overlook in their pocket change. And in this case we are going to be talking about the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, historians, and investors alike because of its staggering worth, a jaw-dropping figure of around $31 million. And to understand why this 1 cent coin, something that was produced in the millions during World War II, could ever reach such an astronomical value, we need to explore the background of the wheat penny, the conditions under which it was minted, the incredible errors and mistakes that occurred in that year, and the reasons why a combination of rarity, historical significance, and collector obsession has made it one of the most sought-after coins in history. So let us start at the very beginning with the story of the Lincoln wheat cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, a design that became iconic with the wheat ears on the reverse representing prosperity and unity. And by the 1940s it was a coin Americans used every single day without giving it a second thought. But in 1943 the United States Mint faced a crisis because copper, the main metal used in making pennies, was needed desperately for the war effort. So the mint switched to using zinc-coated steel instead, creating the famous 1943 steel penny, which had its own controversies because they rusted easily, were mistaken for dimes, and were unpopular with the public. So in 1944, when the war was still raging, the mint returned to using copper, more specifically using recycled shell casings from the battlefields, melting down the brass to make new cents. And this is where things get interesting because in the transition between steel and copper, some mistakes inevitably slipped through the cracks, creating era coins that collectors now consider treasures. And one of the rarest types of these era coins is the 1944 wheat penny struck on a leftover steel planchet from 1943. And these mistakes are so scarce that finding one in circulation today is like winning the lottery. But even beyond the steel planchet errors, there were doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and other oddities in 1944 that created variants of the wheat penny that range from mildly interesting to extremely valuable. And among these anomalies there are coins that, under the right conditions, have sold for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in the rarest and most pristine examples, millions of dollars. And the most famous of them all is the 1944 wheat penny that has been valued at an unbelievable $31 million. A figure that might sound like exaggeration but becomes more understandable once you look at how numismatics, rarity, demand, and condition all combine to create such breathtaking valuations. So let's break down what makes these coins so special and how an ordinary penny from 1944 could end up being one of the most valuable coins in American history. Starting with the fact that not all 1944 wheat pennies are valuable, because the mint produced over 1 billion of them in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But within that massive mintage were accidents, and one of the most incredible accidents involved a few steel planchets from 1943 being accidentally used in 1944, creating the legendary 1944 steel wheat penny, and only a handful of these are known to exist today, each one being worth a fortune, with some sold at auctions for millions. And on top of that we must consider double die errors, where the image on the coin was struck twice slightly offset, creating a dramatic doubling effect that is highly prized among collectors, especially when it appears on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile. And if you add perfect condition to this equation, with coins graded MS67 or higher, the value multiplies to incredible levels because condition is everything in coin collecting. A coin with scratches or wear might be worth a few $100s, but the same coin in pristine mint state with clear errors could fetch millions. And the fascination with 1944 wheat pennies also comes from the historical backdrop, because these were coins made during World War II, coins that literally carry the melted brass of battlefields, coins that represent an era of sacrifice, victory, and change in American history. So collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, a connection to history. And when one coin tells that story with unique mistakes or rare circumstances, it becomes priceless, and the possibilities of what makes the 1944 penny valuable are many. From transitional errors using the wrong planchet, to off-metal strikes, to varieties minted in the wrong mint facility, to extreme doubling that creates visible distortions, to die cracks that give the coin a one-of-a-kind appearance, and every single variation adds a layer of intrigue that collectors cannot resist. And we must remember that value is not just about rarity, but about demand, and the 1944 penny has become legendary in the coin community. Its reputation fueled by record-breaking auction sales, news stories, and whispers of hidden hoards tucked away in old jars, so every time a 1944 penny is found in circulation or in a collection, people check it carefully, hoping to discover one of those mistakes, because that discovery could mean life-changing money. And this dream of finding treasure in ordinary change has made the wheat penny a symbol of numismatic adventure, a reminder that hidden wealth could be sitting right in front of us. And when we talk about the $31 million penny, we are really talking about the perfect storm, the rarest error, in the best condition, with the strongest demand, selling in the right market at the right time. And these factors are what push the value beyond imagination. So imagine finding a coin that looks just like every other wheat penny from 1944 but upon closer inspection turns out to be struck on a leftover steel planchet, or shows dramatic doubling on the date, or has a minting flaw so unusual that no other example exists. That coin would instantly become one of the most valuable objects of its size on Earth, and part of the excitement comes from knowing these coins are out there, hiding in collections, waiting to be discovered, sometimes sitting unnoticed in a family coin jar for decades until someone realizes what they have. And when those coins finally surface, they become headlines, they rewrite the record books, and they inspire new waves of collectors to hunt for treasures of their own. And in this way the legend of the 1944 penny keeps growing. Not just because of the actual mistakes, but because of the possibility of discovery, the hope that someone ordinary could stumble upon something extraordinary. And when we think about the errors themselves, the stories get even more fascinating, because how could the mint, an institution known for precision and strict controls, let such mistakes slip through? Yet history shows that human error, machine malfunctions, and transitional confusion created openings for these rare coins to be born, and instead of being destroyed or recycled, some managed to survive, entering circulation, and over the decades those survivors became rarities. And now rarities have become treasures, and treasures have become legends, and that is why the 1944 wheat penny is worth talking about, studying, and dreaming about, because it represents not just money, but history, chance, and the power of human curiosity. And as collectors, enthusiasts, or just everyday people, we are drawn to these stories because they remind us that value can hide in plain sight, that mistakes can become miracles, and that something as small as a penny can change lives forever. So the next time you look at your change, the next time you come across an old wheat penny, remember the story of 1944, remember the errors that made fortunes, And remember that the coin in your hand might not just be a cent, it might be a ticket to history, to mystery, and maybe, just maybe, to millions of dollars. And with that thought in mind, I encourage you to stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop learning about the fascinating world of coins, because who knows, your next discovery could be the story that everyone is talking about. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of the 1944 wheat penny and its incredible $31 million legend, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing stories of hidden treasures, rare coins, and the unbelievable ways that history, mistakes, and value come together in the most unexpected places. Next, 1958 wheat penny. Now we dive into one of the most fascinating and talked about treasures in the world of rare coins, the 1958 wheat penny, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and everyday people alike because of its astonishing potential value that some say could reach as high as $27 million due to the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and anomalies found in certain examples that make it not just a simple piece of copper but rather a time capsule of the American minting process, a story of chance, rarity, and the way small imperfections can create unimaginable worth. So sit back and get ready, because this journey into the world of the 1958 wheat penny will reveal why a coin that was supposed to be so ordinary has become legendary in the eyes of collectors around the globe, and why you might want to check your old penny jars or family coin collections carefully, since hidden within them might be a life-changing piece of history waiting to be discovered. And to start, we need to go back to the late 1950s, a period when the United States Mint was still producing the beloved wheat penny, officially known as the Lincoln cent with wheat ears on the reverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that had been in use since 1909 and was about to end in 1958, giving way to the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959. Making the 1958 pennies historically significant since they marked the final chapter of the wheat design era. But beyond that, something strange happened in Denver, where the D mint mark was stamped, because in some cases mistakes were made during the striking process that resulted in highly valuable errors so rare that they transformed an otherwise common coin into something that today is whispered about in numismatic circles as being worth millions. And the first major error we need to talk about is the doubled die obverse, one of the most spectacular and sought-after mistakes in the history of coinage, occurring when the die used to strike the coin was engraved twice at slightly different angles or positions, producing a clear doubling effect on the letters, numbers, and sometimes the profile of Lincoln himself. And in the case of the 1958 wheat penny, some coins show this doubling most noticeably on the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust, along with the date, and such doubling is unmistakable when compared to a normal penny, giving the coin an eerie doubled look that makes it immediately stand out to the trained eye. But here's the twist: authentic 1958 doubled die pennies are so elusive that only a handful are confirmed to exist, meaning scarcity is at the heart of its astronomical value, and when scarcity is combined with historic significance, the result is a coin so valuable that auction houses estimate it could fetch tens of millions of dollars under the right circumstances, especially in pristine uncirculated condition. Now, errors don't stop with doubling, there are also off-center strikes where the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting, producing pennies where part of the design is missing and blank copper space takes up the rest. And while many off-center pennies exist across various years, a 1958 wheat penny with this error becomes incredibly valuable because of its connection to the last year of the wheat reverse. And then we have repunched mint marks, known as RPMs, where the Denver D was stamped more than once in slightly different spots, creating a shadow or double D effect that fascinates error hunters. And this seemingly small imperfection adds major collector interest, since the repunched mint mark tells the story of how manual corrections were made at the mint during an era before computerized precision eliminated such human mistakes. Furthermore, there are die cracks, raised lines across the surface of the coin caused by worn or damaged dies, and these cracks, depending on their location and shape, can form interesting patterns that some collectors nickname, such as coins with cracks forming through Lincoln's bust or across the wheat ears, each variation creating a unique one-of-a-kind piece. Then there are clipped planchets where part of the coin's edge is missing due to a misfeed of the metal strip during cutting, producing a crescent-shaped cut on the edge, and if you happen to find a 1958 wheat penny with this type of error, it's no longer just a common penny but a rare survivor of the minting process gone wrong, and, with collectors always seeking the rarest anomalies, the combination of clipped planchet with other errors like doubling or RPM can turn a coin into an extraordinary discovery. But beyond physical errors, the 1958 penny also carries enormous symbolic weight, as it represents the end of an era and thus has a natural historical premium even without mistakes. Yet when you factor in the possibility of a coin exhibiting multiple errors at once, such as a doubled die with an off-center strike or a repunched mint mark combined with die cracks, the price skyrockets into millions, and that is how some experts argue that under perfect storm conditions, a 1958 wheat penny could reach a value of $27 million, especially in the ultra-rare scenario where a coin exists in nearly flawless uncirculated condition certified by top grading services like PCGS or NGC. And if such a coin were to surface at a high-profile auction, it would spark an international bidding war among museums, private collectors and investors, driving the final hammer price to astonishing heights. But let's also explore why errors like these happened, because understanding the process gives us greater appreciation for the mistakes. Back in the 1950s, minting was a combination of machinery and human oversight. Dies were engraved manually, adjustments were made by skilled workers, and quality control was not as automated as it is today, meaning the chances for doubled dies, RPMs, and other anomalies were much higher. And given that billions of wheat pennies were produced across decades, only a tiny fraction slipped through with major visible errors, making those surviving today the rarest of the rare. And to put into perspective how valuable they can be, consider that even a minor doubled die penny from other years, such as the famous 1955 doubled die, can sell for over $100,000 depending on grade. So when you take a last year wheat penny like the 1958 and add in the fact that confirmed doubled die varieties are practically non-existent, the stage is set for astronomical valuations, because rarity plus demand equals value, and demand for the 1958 penny has grown as collectors hunt for the ultimate prize. Stories circulate of coin roll hunters who dream of stumbling upon one in circulation. Though the odds are minuscule, yet hope keeps people searching, and that's part of the magic. Because coins like these fuel imagination, they remind us that history hides in plain sight, that something so small and ordinary can hold secrets worth millions. And even though most 1958 pennies are worth only face value or a few cents to collectors, the possibility that one of them might be the ultimate error variety keeps interest alive. And let's not forget condition plays a huge role. A well-worn error penny might be worth thousands, but a mint-state uncirculated error penny, especially one with bright original luster, can multiply in value exponentially, which is why professional grading is essential, because a coin encapsulated with authentication gives buyers confidence and fuels the bidding wars that send prices sky high. So when we talk about the 1958 penny reaching $27 million, we're not just talking about metal and mistakes, we're talking about history, rarity, human error, passion, and the market forces of supply and demand. And each element adds to the mythos of this coin, making it legendary among numismatists. And if you take a step back, it's almost poetic that the final wheat penny from Denver could also be one of the most valuable, as if the minting process wanted to leave behind a riddle, a challenge for future generations to solve. And as collectors continue to search through boxes of coins, flea markets, estate sales, and attic collections, the dream of finding a 1958 wheat penny with a spectacular error lives on, reminding us that hidden treasures are out there, waiting to be discovered. So if you're inspired by this story, don't overlook the pennies in your pocket or the jars of change at home, because what looks ordinary could in fact be extraordinary. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mystery and magic of the 1958 wheat penny and its potential $27 million value, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of rare coins and treasures from history that could still be hiding right under your nose. Next, 1951 wheat penny, Now we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where ordinary pocket change can sometimes turn into extraordinary fortunes. And in this journey, we are going to explore the remarkable story of the 1951 wheat penny. A coin that might seem at first glance to be just another common cent from America's past, but which in some cases has been valued at an incredible $18 million due to the rare errors, mistakes, and striking anomalies that set it apart from millions of others that rolled off the minting presses. And as we unfold this mystery together, we will not only discuss the history behind the wheat penny itself, but also take a deep look into the minting process, the possibilities of human and mechanical mistakes, and the precise details that can make such a coin transform from a mere cent into a multi-million-dollar collector's dream. So let's begin by considering what the wheat penny represented in 1951, a time when the Lincoln cent was already one of the most familiar coins in circulation, featuring the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat ears on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1909 and continued until 1958. Beloved by many for its classic and simple style, and during this era millions of wheat pennies were struck at 3 different mint locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each with slight variations and tiny differences that today mean everything to collectors and historians alike. But when we talk about a 1951 wheat penny that is suddenly worth $18 million, we are not talking about just any ordinary cent. We are talking about an example that came into existence not because it was perfectly struck but because it was imperfect, because something went wrong, because in the process of minting, whether it be a double die, a wrong planchet, an off-center strike, a clipped planchet, or some other extraordinary flaw, an anomaly was created that turned this small copper coin into something unique, and it is precisely this uniqueness that gives it its tremendous value, for rarity is the lifeblood of numismatics, and rarity born from error becomes even more powerful. So let's look at the different possibilities of what could have happened in 1951 to create such a valuable coin, starting with the double die error. One of the most famous and highly sought-after mistakes in U.S. coinage, where the die itself is improperly made with a doubled impression of the design, and when this die is used to strike coins it leaves behind visible doubling on the details of the coin, sometimes on the lettering such as Liberty or I in God We Trust, sometimes on the date itself, and sometimes on Lincoln's features, and collectors who discover such coins hold in their hands a piece of history where the mistake is clear, obvious, and undeniable. And when that mistake occurs in a coin as old as the 1951 wheat penny, preserved in pristine condition and known to be unique, its value soars to astronomical levels, because the demand from collectors far outstrips the supply. But doubled dies are not the only kind of error that could elevate a coin to a multi-million-dollar price tag. Another possibility is a wrong planchet error, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, for example a cent struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank, which results in a coin that is the wrong size, wrong weight, and sometimes even the wrong metal composition. And such coins are extraordinarily rare because they are products of both accident and luck, needing to escape the mint and survive in circulation for years before being discovered. And if a 1951 wheat penny were discovered to have been struck on a silver dime planchet, the combination of age, rarity, and uniqueness could easily propel its value into the millions. While off-center strikes provide another category of mistake, where the die fails to properly align with the blank, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and the rest is pushed toward the edge. And while minor off-centers are relatively common, dramatic off-centers, where perhaps half the design is missing, are rare and highly desirable, and when they occur on an older wheat penny in uncirculated condition, they can become treasures. Yet still the clipped planchet error adds another possibility, where part of the blank metal disc is missing before it is struck, leaving the finished coin with a distinctive crescent-shaped cut or clip. And though many clipped coins exist, an older example from 1951 with other compounding features, perhaps in mint state condition, can hold immense value. But beyond these mechanical errors there is always the chance of transitional or experimental mistakes, where coins were accidentally struck with materials intended for different years or where mints experimented with compositions that accidentally entered circulation, and numismatics is full of stories where such accidents have yielded some of the rarest coins known today. And in every case the value stems from the fact that these coins are one of a kind, or nearly so, and when wealthy collectors enter bidding wars to obtain them the prices can reach tens of millions, which explains how a single 1951 wheat penny with the right combination of error, preservation, and provenance could be valued at $18 million. And now let's imagine the journey of such a coin, minted in 1951 at perhaps the Denver Mint or San Francisco Mint, slipping past quality control unnoticed, entering circulation where it may have been spent and passed from hand to hand for years, or perhaps plucked early on by someone who noticed something unusual, tucked away in a drawer, jar, or album, and preserved for decades until rediscovered, and at that moment the world of collectors begins to buzz. Because here is not just a coin but a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, and as numismatic experts examine it under microscopes, study its weight, dimensions, and composition, and verify its authenticity, the story unfolds and word spreads of a penny unlike any other, and suddenly auction houses and private collectors are circling, eager to own this marvel, and in the heated arena of bidding the price climbs higher and higher until it reaches the astonishing $18 million mark. And this is not just speculation because history shows us many similar examples where coins once worth a cent have sold for millions, such as the famous 1943 copper penny or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, and the market for such rarities is fueled by passion, history, competition, and the knowledge that once these coins are locked away in private collections they may not be seen again for generations, which only heightens their allure. And so when we talk about the 1951 wheat penny being worth $18 million, we are talking about more than just copper, more than just a coin. We are talking about history, about human error, about luck, about rarity, about survival, and about the incredible power of stories to elevate objects into treasures. And now think about the many other possibilities that might exist among the billions of coins minted, for every year and every series has its potential errors waiting to be discovered, and perhaps right now in someone's pocket, jar, or attic there lies another cent, nickel, dime, or quarter that by sheer accident is worth millions, but only those who look closely will ever find them. So as collectors continue to hunt, study, and preserve, the legacy of these coins grows, and the tale of the 1951 wheat penny becomes not just about a single coin but about the entire field of numismatics, where passion meets patience, and where the smallest details can yield the greatest rewards. And this is why it's so important to educate, to share knowledge, and to keep alive the excitement of discovery, because who knows, maybe you, watching right now, could be the next person to uncover a hidden treasure. And as we wrap up this incredible exploration into the story of the 1951 wheat penny worth $18 million because of its rare and fascinating errors and mistakes, I want to remind you that the world of coins is vast, mysterious, and full of surprises, so always pay attention to the details, always be curious, and always keep searching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and want to continue learning more about coins, treasures, and hidden fortunes waiting in plain sight, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us next time for more amazing stories that prove sometimes the smallest things can hold the biggest value. Now we dive deep into the fascinating and mysterious world of rare coins, where history, chance, mistakes, and human curiosity all combine to transform an ordinary-looking piece of copper into something that is valued not in cents, but in millions of dollars. And today our spotlight is on the 1946 wheat penny. A coin that to the untrained eye may seem like just another Lincoln cent minted in the years following World War II, but to collectors, numismatists, historians, and passionate treasure hunters it carries an unbelievable story of errors, rarity, and incredible value that has pushed its price tag up to a staggering $21 million. And as we begin this journey, we will not just talk about the physical coin itself but about the story of its creation, the mistakes that make it stand out, and the possibilities that allow a small copper coin to achieve the status of priceless rarity. So settle in, because this is not just about a penny, it is about history, technology, economics, and human fascination with the unusual and the imperfect. And at the heart of this story lies the U.S. Mint in San Francisco in 1946, a year of transition for the United States, when soldiers were returning home, Industries were shifting back to peacetime production, and the mint was producing coins in massive quantities to meet the demands of a growing economy. Yet amidst this large-scale production, errors were bound to slip through, and those errors, when tied to the right coin, can create legends. The 1946 wheat penny is one such example, and to understand its extraordinary value we have to examine what went wrong, what was unusual, and why collectors today see it as a piece of numismatic gold even though it is made of copper. First, we should consider the mint mark itself, the S standing for San Francisco, where many coins were struck but where slight variations in the size, placement, and punching of mint marks created collectible varieties. Some 1946 wheat pennies show repunched mint marks, where the S was punched more than once into the die, resulting in overlapping impressions that create a visible doubling effect, and collectors pay huge premiums for these because each repunching error is unique, like a fingerprint, meaning that the number of such coins is limited and their survival into the present day even more rare. Then there are striking errors such as off-center strikes, where the coin blank or planchet was not aligned properly with the dies, resulting in part of the design being cut off while the rest is shifted toward one side. These off-center 1946 pennies are incredibly valuable because they represent a tangible mistake in the production process, and depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, the coin's value can skyrocket. A minor off-center strike may add some value, but a dramatic one showing half of Lincoln's portrait missing can push the rarity into astronomical territory. Then there are double die errors, where the hubbing process that transfers the design onto the working die misaligns, creating coins where the inscriptions, date, or details of Lincoln's face appear doubled, and in 1946 wheat pennies, known double dies exist, and for collectors this is one of the most desirable categories of mint errors, because the doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye, and such visibility fuels the fascination and demand. But the errors don't stop there, as we must also consider die cracks, cuds, and die breaks that occurred when the mint's equipment became overused, and on some surviving 1946 pennies you can see raised lines or blobs of metal where the die cracked or chipped, adding yet another layer of uniqueness. Each die crack is a reminder of the imperfect minting process in an era when quality control was not as precise as it is today, further adding to the coin's collectability. Another contributing factor to the extraordinary valuation of $21 million is the material of the coin itself. As 1946 was a transitional period in coinage composition, just a few years earlier in 1943 the U.S. Mint had struck pennies in steel coated with zinc to conserve copper for the war effort, and after 1944 copper returned. But not all copper was the same. Some pennies were struck on leftover foreign planchets or transitional blanks. So a 1946 wheat penny that might have been mistakenly struck on a steel planchet, a silver dime planchet, or another foreign coin blank becomes a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, and such off-metal errors are known to exist from the 1940s, giving us the possibility that hidden among ordinary 1946 pennies could be experimental strikes worth fortunes. When you combine all of these potential errors, repunched mint marks, double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, off-metal planchets, broad strikes where the coin was struck without a retaining collar allowing it to expand beyond normal size, you begin to see why this coin has captured the imagination of the collecting world. And yet, beyond the technicalities of minting mistakes, we also must look at the psychology of collectors, because a numismatic's value is not just about rarity, but about the story, and the 1946 wheat penny carries a story rooted in a nation rebuilding after war, a San Francisco mint producing coins with urgency, and errors slipping into circulation unnoticed, only to be discovered decades later by sharp-eyed collectors who recognize their uniqueness. And when one of these coins enters the marketplace, competitive bidding between wealthy collectors can drive the price into the millions, and this is how we arrive at the $21 million figure, as a rare combination of circumstances creates a perfect storm for extraordinary valuation. Now imagine holding in your hand a coin that may have been exchanged for bread or milk in the 1940s. Yet today represents a small fortune that could buy houses, cars, or entire collections, and that transformation from ordinary to extraordinary is why stories like this resonate so strongly with people, because it proves that hidden treasures may still be out there, perhaps sitting in jars of pennies in basements or attics, waiting to be discovered. The excitement of the hunt drives countless hobbyists to check their change, to study mint marks under magnification, and to dream of finding that one coin that could change their lives forever. And the 1946 wheat penny with its $21 million price tag embodies that dream better than almost any other. As we continue thinking about its errors, we can also explore misaligned dies, where the obverse and reverse designs fail to line up correctly, producing coins where the reverse is rotated or shifted, another type of error highly sought after. And then there are clipped planchets, where the blank metal disc was improperly cut, leaving a curved clip on the edge of the coin. And these two exist for 1946 pennies, each type of mistake layering on another possibility of value. And then we have struck-through errors, where foreign objects such as pieces of wire, fabric, or grease became trapped between the die and the planchet, leaving impressions or weak spots on the coin's surface. And when such bizarre features appear on a 1946 wheat penny, the coin becomes a conversation piece. An artifact not only of minting history but of the odd accidents that can happen in industrial processes, all of which fuels the fascination of collectors. But beyond errors and mistakes, condition also plays a critical role, because a coin that has survived since 1946 in pristine, uncirculated condition with full mint luster, sharp details, and little to no wear is already rare. And when that pristine coin also exhibits a dramatic error, the rarity compounds exponentially, driving values into the stratosphere. Which is why professional grading services have documented certain 1946 wheat pennies at the highest grades possible. And when those coins combine condition with unusual features, the results are sales that astonish the collecting world. So we see that the $21 million valuation is not a random number, but a reflection of scarcity, demand, condition, error type, and the willingness of collectors to pay to own something no one else has. And all of this together creates the mythos around the 1946 wheat penny, making it one of the most talked about rarities in American numismatic history. So when you think about that little copper coin, remember it is not just about its face value of 1 cent, but about the errors and mistakes that turned it into a legend, and about the possibilities still out there. Because who knows, perhaps in some forgotten coin jar lies another 1946 wheat penny with a spectacular error waiting to be found. And that discovery could once again shake the collecting community, and remind us that history is not only found in museums, but also in the loose change that passes through our hands. And with that thought in mind, I invite you to keep exploring, keep learning, keep checking your pennies, because the world of coins is full of surprises. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the story of the 1946 wheat penny and its journey to becoming a $21 million treasure, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories about rare coins and hidden treasures, and share this with others who love the thrill of the hunt, because you never know who might be holding a fortune in their pocket change right now.